So, the Olympics happened, and Diana Taurasi has probably, I'm not going to say ruined her legacy, because I do think that with the growth of the WNBA, though, it's not been great for her. It has really not been great for her. But she's still one of the greatest players of all time. Let's not get it twisted. Diana Taurasi was one of the best players on all of the Olympic teams. But it doesn't matter, because at 42 years old, I think she made a horrible decision. She went to break Sue Bird's record. That's the only reason. The only reason she went to the Olympics was to break the record and get one up over Sue Bird. And in doing that, arguably the greatest of all time's legacy, especially amongst the new fans, is gone. And you might be saying, oh, that doesn't matter. The new fans don't matter. The new fans are more than 50% of the fans. So yeah, it does really matter. And it is kind of crazy though, because look, like Diana Taurasi was nicknamed the White Mamba by Kobe Bryant himself, by the way. She was nicknamed the White Mamba by Kobe. Is a 3-time WNBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, 11-time All-Star. In fairness, her last one was 2018 before the Olympic years. 10-time All-WNBA first, a 14-time All-WNBA player. 14-time All-WNBA player. 5-time scoring champion. She's the last guard to win an MVP. And Elena Delle Donne is not a guard. And for the national team, like, after 2004, what is it? In 2004, she was on the Olympic team. She was on the 2008 team. She started every game in 2008. She was probably arguably their best player for a couple of Olympics. And heck, even in these Olympics, she was their best guard in the All-Star game. She was their best guard against Germany. But she just was not good in the Olympics. She really was not good in the Olympics. And I hate to say it, that is a lot of what people remember, because people aren't watching. I'm sorry, people are not watching the Phoenix Mercury play that much basketball. She is the GOAT. She is, look, Taurasi is probably the greatest ever. As far as longevity, as far as prime, as far as everything. And the fact that at 42 years old, she's still averaging a crazy amount. But there is a big, big difference between what you do. And that's the thing where it's like, especially when it comes to basketball. When it comes to basketball, people talk about your legacy as moments. Like, it doesn't matter that this season, Diana Taurasi is averaging 16.1 points per game and 5 rebounds a game. She is averaging good numbers for a guard. Like, she's averaging very, very comparable numbers to a Kelsey Mitchell, who is an all-star. But people aren't going to remember this. They're going to remember this. The 1 point per game. The 5 points in the Olympics. 2 points against Japan and 1 shot against Nigeria. And this DNP in the final. And that's the worst part about this, is that I will say, a lot of people are like, oh, her 6 Olympics should be celebrated. But I'm sorry, it's like bringing Melo to this Olympics. And I know she's she was better in the, just in, if you have a historic precedent, maybe this Olympics is wrong for Melo. It's like bringing Carmelo Anthony in 2021. He was still hanging on in the league. I think he was playing either with the Blazers and he just signed for the Lakers. He's hanging on in the league. He's fine for the Blazers. I think he was averaging 12, 13 a game. And you go and bring him to the Olympics in 2021. If the men, I will say this, and this is not a knock on Diana Taurasi. If the men made that decision, then they would be killed for it. Especially if they went and, I know they lost to France in the group, but that French team in the men's is way better than the French women's team. I'm just putting it out there. The French men's team is way better than the French women's team. So, if you are going to almost lose that game, and this is when these decisions look really bad. And you did win. Look, you won. You won. Fair and square. No question about it, you won. You were the better team. You should have won by 40, but you won. Whether it's 40 or whether it's 1, you still have that gold medal. But it is crazy that this is the way Diana Taurasi is going to be remembered, because a lot of people don't realize it. That the WNBA, the new WNBA fans are probably going to be there to stay. There's a reason why even just a random-ass Dallas Wings versus Atlanta Dream game gets more views than a regular season game, or this season, than a regular season game between the Liberty and the Aces, who are the 2 super teams. There's a reason for that. And the reason is that there are more people interested in women's basketball. And that's just a fact. It's a good thing. It is a good thing that the amount of people interested in watching specifically Caitlin Clark, and just Caitlin Clark alone, is probably equally as many as new people as are just fans of the league. But I think the overall landscape of fans of the WNBA doubled. And it's not just because of Clark, it's because of everything. It's because of the fact that it's because of the whole college basketball run. Because again, it was not just, people forget that it was not just that day. I think the most important day was not the Caitlin Clark versus South Carolina. It was not the You Can't See Me. The biggest day was the next year, where immediately we had one of the greatest college games of all time in Caitlin Clark versus LSU, where I know Angel Reese went down, but Angel Reese was real good in that game. But Caitlin Clark had a 40.12 assist, near triple-double. 41.12 assist. And then we had the Haley Van Lith memes, like, what can I do? And it was one of the best games I've seen from a player ever. And then people forget that immediately after that game was the 5th most viewed college game of all time or something. South Carolina and Juju Watkins versus Paige Beckers and UConn. Paige Beckers was the original hyped player. She was the original hyped player in that 2020 class. She was the one who was the most hyped college player of all time before the Caitlin Clark mania. And Juju Watkins is this freshman who you could argue has been, as far as scoring wise goes, the best freshman we'd ever seen. So everyone wanted to watch that game. So it wasn't, and then you got to see UConn, the winner of that, play off against them. And then you got to see this unbeatable South Carolina team play off against Iowa. And a lot of people are excited, that were excited about that game, are excited about the Camila Cardoso of the world, are excited about next year Raven Johnson coming in. So people are excited about the sport. So there's going to be a lot more viewers in general, not just for specifically Caitlin Clark. The problem is that a lot of these new viewers, you know of Taurasi. Everyone knows of Diana Taurasi. Everyone who has any interest, who has ever had any interest really in basketball or anything in WNBA, has heard the name Taurasi. They've heard the name Steward. They probably heard the name AJ Wilson. They probably heard the name Breanna Stewart. They'd heard the name Cheryl Swoops. But it's what you can do now, a lot of the time, that is going to define somewhat a legacy. And you're seeing Sue Bird is Paul piercing her way. She's Paul piercing her legacy away. And Diana Taurasi, this one decision, and as well as the reality is coming quote, it just wasn't. It was a bad soundbite more than anything. But it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Diana Taurasi is one of the greatest ever. Diana Taurasi is, at 42 years old, still a really good starter in this league. Diana Taurasi should not have played in this Olympics. She should have bowed out. She was picked for the 2021 Olympic team. Her, Sue Bird, Sylvia Fowles were picked for that team. They should have bowed out there. They should have bowed out and just said, look, this is our time. We're done. She just stayed on for one Olympics too long when she just was not good enough. She's just straight up was not good enough for this Olympics, and she just stayed on too long. It's like, I'm trying to just think of a player. It's like if Chris Paul. It's like, say if Chris Paul had played in every Olympics, and Chris Paul was on the Redeem team, he was on the 2012 team, he was on the 2016 team, but let's just say hypothetically, he plays in 2016, he then plays in 2021, where, to be fair, he would, if he wanted to play in 2016, he's on the team in 2016. If he wanted to play in 2021, after him leading the Phoenix Suns to the finals, he's on that team in 2021 if he wanted to be there. So, if he wanted both of them, he's there. It would be like if Chris Paul now took a spot from somebody else, and then they started Chris Paul over, let's just say Jalen Brunson, who didn't make the team, or let's say Ant. Ant's sitting at home, and Chris Paul's there. Chris Paul's starting, and he's playing all these minutes just so that he can break an Olympic record and go and win 5 golds. It would be an equivalent of that. And people would be, if that's the way people will end up remembering you, that's just the unfortunate thing, is that could be the way people will end up remembering you. And I think that in the short term, Diana Taurasi's legacy will take a hit. I think in the short term, people will just remember this situation from Taurasi. They'll remember Taurasi the way she ended the career. But I think in a couple of years' time, when the 16 teams that are meant to be in the league are there, the CBA's in, people are earning more money, there's more hype in the league, I think it then becomes a case where people will forget about the last year or two of the career, and it'll just be looked at Taurasi's prime, and if she's not the GOAT, she's the greatest guard of all time, without question.